The Celestial Academy floated 300 kilometers above the neutral moon of Kasara, a gleaming fortress of glass and steel where the galaxy's elite sent their offspring to prepare for leadership. 17 species mingled in its corridors, their children groomed for diplomatic posts, corporate empires, military command. Humans had attended for only 12 years, ever since first contact proved Earth wasn't just another backwater colony but a legitimate civilization. Still, old prejudices died harder than stars. Maya Torres sat alone in the quantum physics lab, her dark eyes scanning holographic equations that danced in midair. She'd solved the problem Professor Velkoth assigned 20 minutes ago. Now she was 3 chapters ahead, working through theoretical applications the instructor hadn't covered yet. Her fingers moved through the light constructs, rearranging variables with practiced ease. Look at the Deathworlder pretending she understands advanced science. Maya didn't turn. She recognized the voice. Dral'vex Carthian, heir to the Carthian Mining Consortium, one of the wealthiest entities in the outer spiral. His species, the Velkain, resembled bipedal reptiles with iridescent scales that shifted colors based on mood. Right now, his were a smug purple gold. Shouldn't you be learning how to fight with sticks? Or whatever savages do, Dral'vex continued, moving closer. His 3 friends flanked him, grinning with whatever passed for amusement in their respective species. Maya finally looked up. Shouldn't you be learning how to spend daddy's money without crashing the family business? Oh wait, that's advanced economics. Probably too difficult. The purple gold scales flickered toward angry crimson. Dral'vex wasn't accustomed to being challenged, especially not by someone from a species the galaxy still considered primitive. Humans might have fusion drives and quantum computers now, but they built them in less than 2 centuries. The Velkain had 3,000 years of spacefaring history. You know what your problem is. Dral'vex leaned against her workstation, deliberately disrupting her equations. You people think surviving on a death world makes you special. It doesn't. It makes you lucky your species didn't go extinct before developing technology. That's a fascinating theory. Maya's voice remained level, almost bored. Did you develop it yourself, or did your tutor spoon-feed it to you along with your breakfast? One of Dral'vex's friends, a crystalline shinner named Kix, laughed. The sound resembled wind chimes in a hurricane. She's got fire, Dral'vex. I'll give the human that much. Dral'vex's scales went fully crimson now. He straightened, towering over Maya's seated position. Most species in the academy stood taller than humans, another point of mockery. What they didn't understand, what they consistently failed to grasp, was that size meant nothing to someone from a world where gravity pulled 50% harder than galactic standard. You want to prove you belong here? Dral'vex gestured to the holographic display. This equation set. Solve it in front of everyone. Right now. Maya glanced at the problem. It was actually simpler than what she'd been working on.
That's your challenge?
Basic wave particle reconciliation. We covered that in 3rd year at my Earth school. Then prove it. The lab had gone quiet. Other students representing a dozen species watched the confrontation unfold. Human-alien tension wasn't new at Celestial Academy, but open challenges were rare. Most understood that maintaining harmony between species was part of their education, preparation for diplomatic futures. Maya stood slowly, her movements fluid despite the station's lower gravity. She'd been on Kasara for 6 months, and still wasn't fully adjusted. Everything felt slightly too light, like she might float away if she moved too quickly. She stepped to the main display console, aware of every eye tracking her. Her fingers moved through the holographic interface. Equations unfolded, variables aligned, theoretical frameworks collapsed into elegant solutions. She worked without hesitation, muscle memory from hundreds of similar problems guiding her hands. 45 seconds later, she stepped back. The solution hung in the air, complete and correct. Professor Velkoth, who'd been observing from his office, emerged into the lab. The elderly Thessian looked like a bipedal praying mantis, his compound eyes reflecting rainbow patterns as he examined Maya's work. Flawless, and faster than I've ever seen it solved by a 4th-year student. Dral'vex's scales had gone pale, almost white. Embarrassment, mixed with rage. Lucky guess. Mathematics isn't about luck, Maya said quietly. It's about understanding patterns and relationships. Something you might grasp if you spent less time mocking people and more time studying. She gathered her materials and left the lab, ignoring the whispers that followed. This wasn't her first confrontation with Dral'vex, and she doubted it would be the last. The Velikan heir seemed personally offended by her existence, as though her competence somehow diminished his own value. What Maya didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Dral'vex's humiliation wouldn't end with muttered insults and dirty looks. It would end with fire, blood, and a decision that would reshape the balance of power across 3 sectors. The Academy's central hub served as mess hall, recreation area, and social nexus. Species-specific dietary needs meant the food dispensers offered hundreds of options, from the liquid nutrients the Quillic absorbed through their skin to the fermented grains the Borvan preferred. Maya grabbed something approximating a chicken sandwich and found a quiet corner. She'd barely taken her first bite when Jessa Kim slid into the seat across from her. Jessa, another human student, had become Maya's closest friend at the Academy. Where Maya was quiet and analytical, Jessa was loud, social, and aggressively optimistic. "Heard you destroyed Dral'vex in quantum physics," Jessa said, grinning. "Please tell me someone recorded it." "It wasn't a destruction, I solved an equation." "You embarrassed the most arrogant student in our year in front of half the physics department." That's basically a war declaration in his culture. Maya paused mid-bite. "What do you mean?" "The Velcane take humiliation seriously, like ritual combat seriously. My anthropology professor spent 3 weeks covering their honor codes." Jessa leaned forward, her smile fading. "Dral'vex isn't going to let this slide. Maya, you need to watch your back." "I'm not going to apologize for being good at math." "I'm not asking you to apologize. I'm asking you to be careful. His family controls mining operations across 17 systems. They have resources, connections, and apparently a long history of making problems disappear." Before Maya could respond, the lights flickered. Once, twice, then steady again. Students looked up, confused. Power fluctuations were virtually unheard of in the Academy's triple redundant systems. An announcement echoed through the hub, delivered in the emotionless tone of the station's artificial intelligence. "All students and faculty report to designated shelter zones immediately. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." Jessa's eyes widened. What the hell? Maya was already moving, her sandwich forgotten. They joined the stream of students heading toward the shelter zones, specially reinforced sections of the Academy designed to withstand everything from reactor failures to asteroid impacts. The crowd moved with surprising order, years of emergency drills paying off. As they descended into Shelter Zone 7, Maya caught a glimpse of the external monitors. What she saw made her blood freeze. Ships, dozens of them, their hulls painted matte black, their profiles designed to minimize sensor detection. They surrounded the Academy in a loose sphere, weapons ports open, targeting systems active. "Pirates," someone whispered. The word rippled through the crowd like poison, but Maya didn't think these were pirates. Pirates hit cargo vessels, mining outposts, isolated colonies. They didn't attack a neutral Academy station protected by 3 separate treaty organizations. This was something else, something calculated and deliberate. She thought about Dral'vex's humiliation, his family's resources, Jessa's warning about the Velkine honor code. A cold suspicion began forming in her gut, but it seemed too extreme, too insane. No one would attack an entire Academy station because of a teenage argument. Would they? The shelter zone sealed with a hiss of hydraulics, blast doors 3 meters thick sliding into place. Emergency lighting cast everything in red-tinted shadows. Students huddled in groups, organized by species, instincts driving them toward their own kind in crisis. Maya and Jessa stood with the other humans, 17 of them total, all looking scared and confused. "We're safe here," a professor was saying, his voice strained. "These shelters can withstand direct nuclear strikes. We just need to wait for help to arrive." "Help from where?" Maya asked. "The nearest military outpost is 4 hours away at maximum warp." The professor didn't answer, which was answer enough. Hours crawled by. The shelter's internal communications were limited, showing only basic station status, life support, functional. Hull integrity, compromised in sectors 9 through 12. External communications jammed. That last detail confirmed Maya's suspicion. These weren't pirates looking for a quick score. This was a planned assault. Jessa sat beside her, knees pulled to her chest. "This doesn't make sense. Why would anyone attack the Academy? There's nothing here worth stealing." Most students are from important families, so kidnapping would bring down hell from a dozen governments. Maya said nothing, her mind racing through possibilities. The attack had started less than 2 hours after her confrontation with Dral'vex. That couldn't be coincidence. But how? How could anyone mobilize a fleet that quickly, unless they were already in position? Unless someone had been planning this for days, weeks even, just waiting for the right trigger. The shelter's main screen flickered to life, displaying an image that made several students gasp. A figure stood in what looked like the Academy's administrative deck, surrounded by armed soldiers in black combat armor. The figure's face was obscured by a tactical helmet, but the voice was unmistakable. "Attention, Celestial Academy. My name is irrelevant. My purpose is simple. I'm looking for a human student named Maya Torres. Deliver her to Docking Bay 5 within the next hour, and the rest of you will be allowed to leave unharmed. Refuse, and we'll start venting atmosphere from the occupied sections until you reconsider." The screen went black. Every eye in the shelter turned toward Maya. "No," Jessa said immediately, grabbing Maya's arm. "Absolutely not. We don't negotiate with terrorists." But Maya was already thinking, calculating. Hundreds of students, dozens of faculty members, all of them hostages, because of her. Because she'd embarrassed Dral'vex. Because she dared to be better than him at something that mattered. "This is my fault," she said quietly. "This is Dral'vex's fault," Jessa corrected. "That's his family's private military on those ships. I bet everything I own." A Borvan student spoke up, his voice a low rumble. "If giving them one person saves everyone else, isn't that the logical choice?" "Logical," Jessa rounded on him. "Handing over a student to people who just attacked us with a mercenary fleet. That's not logic, that's cowardice." Arguments erupted throughout the shelter. Some species had cultural traditions favoring group survival over individual rights. Others found the very suggestion morally repugnant. The professors tried to maintain order, but fear and stress were fracturing their authority. Maya stood, her decision made. "I'm going." "Like hell you are," Jessa blocked her path. "They'll kill you the moment you're off the station. Maybe. But if I don't go, they'll definitely kill everyone else." Maya met her friend's eyes. "Jessa, this is my choice. Let me make it." Before Jessa could argue further, the shelter doors exploded inward. The blast knocked students off their feet, smoke and debris filling the air. Armored figures poured through the breach, moving with military precision. They weren't shooting to kill, Maya noticed. Stun weapons only, designed to incapacitate rather than terminate. That should have been reassuring, but somehow it made everything worse. Someone wanted her alive and conscious. Hands grabbed Maya, dragging her toward the destroyed entrance. She didn't resist. Fighting would only endanger others, and these soldiers were clearly professionals. Jessa screamed her name, trying to reach her, but a stun blast dropped her friend to the ground. They hauled Maya through corridors she'd walked 1,000 times, now filled with smoke and emergency lighting. Bodies lay scattered, students and faculty stunned into unconsciousness. The attackers had swept through the entire academy with brutal efficiency, neutralizing resistance before anyone could organize a defense. Docking Bay 5 was a nightmare of activity. The black ships had attached boarding tubes, and soldiers moved in organized units, loading equipment and personnel, and standing in the center of it all, scales now a victorious gold, was Dral'vex. "Hello, Maya," he said, his reptilian features twisted into something approximating a smile. "I told you Deathworlders don't belong here. Now the entire galaxy is going to learn what happens when you embarrass the wrong person." Maya's mind raced. This was beyond insane. This was a diplomatic catastrophe, an act of war against a neutral institution. Dral'vex's family might be wealthy, but this would bring consequences they couldn't escape, unless they didn't plan to leave witnesses. The realization hit her like cold water. These soldiers weren't using lethal force now, but once Maya was secured, once the leverage was no longer needed, everyone in the academy would become a liability. Evidence to be eliminated. She had to do something. But what could one unarmed human do against a private army? Then she remembered something from her Earth history classes. Something about her world's wars, about desperate last stands and impossible victories. Humans didn't win through strength or numbers. They won through adaptation, through turning disadvantages into weapons. She was standing in a docking bay filled with military-grade spacecraft, ships with fusion reactors, reactors that could be overloaded. Maya turned to Dral'vex, her expression calm despite the terror churning in her gut. You know what the funny thing is? You could have just ignored me. Could have let your grades speak for themselves. But you had to make it personal. And now you've destroyed your family's entire legacy for revenge. My family's legacy is secure, Dral'vex replied. Yours ends today. Does it? Maya glanced at the ships, then back at him. Tell me something, Dralt. Do your soldiers know you're planning to kill everyone on this station? Do they know they're accessories to mass murder? Several of the armored figures shifted uncomfortably. Mercenaries they might be, but there were lines most wouldn't cross.
Dral'vex's scales flickered toward crimson. Shut her up and get her on my ship.
As the soldiers moved toward her, Maya made her decision. She'd spent 6 months studying this station's systems, learning every detail of its operation. She knew where the emergency overrides were, how to trigger station-wide evacuations, and most importantly how to lock down individual sections. She lunged not away from the soldiers, but toward the nearest control panel, her fingers flying across the holographic interface. The soldiers were fast, but she'd been born in gravity that would crush them. Trained in martial arts that assumed your opponent was stronger, faster, better armed, she was Earthborn, Deathworld raised, and she'd be damned if she died easily. The panel accepted her commands, a split second before hands grabbed her shoulders. B doors began cycling shut, emergency klaxons screaming warnings. Dral'vex's eyes widened as he realized what she'd done. She'd locked them all inside the docking bay and initiated a reactor purge on the nearest ship. 30 seconds until containment failure, the station's AI announced calmly. Evacuate immediately. Override it. Dral'vex screamed at his soldiers. But Maya had used her student credentials, which gave her access to safety systems that couldn't be overridden without administrative authorization. The attackers had control of the station, but they hadn't captured the AI core yet. 20 seconds. The soldiers released Maya and ran for their ships, military discipline collapsing into survival instinct. Dral'vex stood frozen, scales cycling through colors so rapidly they became a chaotic blur. 15 seconds. Maya sprinted for the emergency airlock, the only exit left unsealed, her legs burned, lungs screaming, every instinct telling her she wouldn't make it. 10 seconds. She hit the airlock and slammed the activation panel. The door began to close, glacially slow. 5 seconds. She squeezed through the narrowing gap, rolling into the corridor beyond. The explosion vaporized docking bay 5 and everything in it. The shock wave threw Maya against the far wall hard enough to crack her ribs. Pain exploded through her chest, white-hot and nauseating, but she forced herself to move. The corridor's emergency seals activated, containing the breach, but the entire station shuddered like a wounded animal. She'd killed them. Dral'vex, his soldiers, everyone in that docking bay, the reality of it threatened to drown her, but she pushed the horror down, buried it beneath survival instinct. Mourn later. Survive now. Her handheld communicator, miraculously still intact, chirped. Jessa's voice crackled through static. Maya! Oh God! What happened? The entire academy felt that blast. Docking Bay 5 is gone. So is Dral'vex and half his mercenaries. Maya limped down the corridor, each breath agony. But there are more ships, Jessa. They'll be coming for revenge now, and they won't care about keeping anyone alive. The remaining mercenaries are retreating to their vessels, Jessa said. Sounds like your stunt scared them. Nobody signed up to fight someone crazy enough to blow up a fusion reactor.
I'm not crazy. I'm practical.
Maya found a service elevator and called it. Listen carefully. I need you to get to the communications array in Section 4. The attackers jammed external signals, but if we can boost power to the quantum Ansible, we might punch through to Coalition space. The Ansible is designed for data packets, not real-time communication. Then send a data packet. Emergency codes, station coordinates, everything. Get help here before the mercs regroup and finish what they started. What about you? Maya stepped into the elevator, selecting the deck that housed environmental controls. I'm going to make sure if they come back, they'll regret it. The elevator lurched upward, servos grinding against damaged mechanisms. Through the transparent walls, Maya could see the destruction her desperate gambit had caused. Docking Bay 5 was simply gone, replaced by a jagged wound in the station's hull. Debris floated in the void beyond, glittering in the light of Kasura's twin suns. Bodies too, she thought, but didn't let herself focus on them. Environmental control occupied a secure section near the station's core, a maze of life support systems that regulated atmosphere, temperature, and pressure for 17 different species. Maya had spent weeks here during her orientation, learning how each system integrated with the others. Back then it had seemed like tedious technical information. Now it might save everyone's life. The control room was empty, its operators having fled to the shelters when the attack began. Maya accessed the main console, her injured ribs screaming protest with every movement. The station's status display painted a grim picture: hull breaches in 4 sections, power fluctuating, shield generators offline, life support holding but strained, and 6 hostile ships still orbiting, their weapons charged, their intent unclear. Maya's hands moved across the interface, pulling up schematics that few students ever saw. The Academy's defensive capabilities were minimal by design, limited to point defense lasers for asteroid deflection and shield generators rated for cosmic radiation, not military-grade weapons. But there were other systems, industrial tools never intended for combat, like the mining laser array used for orbital construction, or the magnetic containment fields that could theoretically deflect high-velocity projectiles, or the waste reclamation system's emergency venting protocols. Maya smiled despite the pain. Earth's military history was filled with stories of improvised weapons, of desperate soldiers turning plowshares into swords. Humanity had spent millennia perfecting the art of creative violence, adapting civilian technology for warfare when survival demanded it. Time to remind the galaxy why Deathworlds produce dangerous species. She routed power from non-essential systems, channeling it into the mining lasers. The beams weren't designed to cut through military-grade armor, but they could slice asteroidal rock like butter, and ship hulls, even armored ones, were less dense than solid stone. Her communicator chirped again. "Maya, it's Professor Velikoth. Are you responsible for the power fluctuations?" "Yes, Professor. I'm weaponizing the station." A long pause. "That's highly irregular. So is being attacked by a private military fleet." "I'm improvising." She finished recalibrating the mining lasers, then moved to the magnetic containment controls. "How many people are still in the shelters?" "All students and faculty except you and Miss Kim." "Maya, what you did in the docking bay, that was an extraordinary act of courage, but you don't need to fight this battle alone. Help is coming." "Help is 4 hours away. Those ships could resume their attack in 4 minutes." Maya pulled up external camera feeds, studying the remaining vessels. They'd pulled back from the station, clearly reassessing their situation after watching their employer and half their unit vaporize. But mercenaries were mercenaries. They'd been paid, and most professional companies considered a contract binding regardless of circumstances. One of the ships broke formation, accelerating toward the station. "Here we go," Maya whispered. She activated the mining lasers, targeting the approaching vessel. Brilliant blue-white beams lanced across the void, converging on the ship's forward shields. The defenses held for 3 seconds, then collapsed under sustained industrial-grade cutting power. The beams carved into the hull, vaporizing armor, cutting deep into internal systems. The ship veered off, trailing atmosphere and debris. The remaining 5 vessels immediately opened fire. Kinetic rounds and energy weapons hammered the station's shields, each impact sending shudders through the superstructure. Maya rerouted more power to the generators, but it wasn't enough. The shields were designed for cosmic radiation and micrometeorites, not sustained military assault. "Shields at 40%, the AI announced. 35%. 30%. Maya activated the magnetic containment fields, configuring them in a desperate improvisation. The fields were meant to contain plasma for the station's reactors, but physics was physics. Magnetic forces could deflect charged particles, and most kinetic weapons relied on mass driver technology that left projectiles with residual electromagnetic signatures. The incoming rounds curved slightly, their trajectories altered just enough to miss the station, not all of them, and not by much, but enough to reduce the shield drain. 28%. Holding at 28%. Jessa's voice crackled through the communicator. "I reached the Ansible. Sent out every emergency code I could find. If anyone's listening, help should be on the way." "How long?" "I don't know. The Ansible doesn't give acknowledgement signals for emergency broadcasts. But Maya, you need to hear this. I'm picking up comm chatter from the mercenary ships. They're talking about pulling out, cutting their losses." Then why are they still shooting at us? Because their contract included a termination clause. They don't get paid unless they complete the job or confirm their employer's death. Since Dral'vex is definitely dead, they're trying to fulfill the primary objective. Maya felt cold despite the sweat running down her back. They're still trying to kill me, looks like it. But they're also scared. You blew up their employer and a third of their force with improvised weapons. The comm chatter suggests they think you're some kind of trained special operations agent, not a 17-year-old student. Let them think that. Maya targeted the mining lasers again, this time aiming for the ship that seemed to be coordinating the attack. Probably the fleet commander, whoever had inherited authority after Dral'vex's dramatic exit. The beams caught the vessel as it maneuvered, slicing through maneuvering thrusters. The ship spun out of control, its pilot fighting to stabilize. The other four immediately broke off their attack, retreating to a safer distance. Maya allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. They were afraid now, treating her like a legitimate threat rather than helpless prey. Shields recovering, the AI reported. 32%, 36%. Professor Valikoth? Maya called. Can you get a damage control team to the breached sections? We need those sealed before the shields fail completely. Already organized. Maya, I must say, your tactical thinking is remarkable. Have you considered military service? I was considering quantum engineering before today. Now I'm reconsidering everything. She checked the chronometer. 2 hours since the attack began. 2 more until coalition forces could arrive, assuming Jessa's message got through, assuming help was coming, assuming they could survive that long. The mercenary ships maintained their distance. Weapons charged but not firing. A standoff, but Maya knew it couldn't last. They had orders, contracts, professional reputations to maintain. Eventually they'd try again, and next time they'd be ready for her improvised defenses. She needed a different approach. Jessa, are you still at the Ansigle station? Yeah. Why? Can you access the diplomatic database? Specifically mercenary company registrations and contract law. Probably? Give me a minute. Sounds of rapid typing. Okay, what am I looking for? Combat contracts require specific legal conditions to be valid. If those conditions aren't met, the entire agreement becomes void. Find me the loopholes. More typing, longer this time. Then Jessa laughed, short and sharp. Oh, you're brilliant. Contracts involving attacks on protected neutral institutions are automatically void under coalition law, and Celestial Academy has neutral status guaranteed by 17 different governments, which means if they continue this attack they're no longer operating under legal contract. They're just committing war crimes. Exactly. And most professional mercenary companies are obsessive about maintaining legal standing. It's what separates them from pirates. Maya opened a broadcast channel, transmitting on frequencies the mercenary ships were certain to monitor. Attention hostile vessels. This is Maya Torres, acting under emergency authority granted by Celestial Academy administrative protocols. You are currently engaged in an illegal assault on a neutral institution protected by coalition treaty. Your contract is void. Continued attacks constitute war crimes subject to galactic prosecution. Stand down immediately and you'll be treated as misled contractors. Continue, and you'll be hunted as war criminals. Silence stretched across the void. Maya watched the ships, waiting, her heart hammering against her broken ribs. One vessel powered down its weapons. Then another. Then all of them. This is Fleet Commander Saren of the Obsidian Lance Company, a gravelly voice responded. We've reviewed the legal standing and concur with your assessment. Our contract is void. We're withdrawing from the combat zone and will submit to coalition authority for debriefing. Transmitting full combat logs now. Relief washed through Maya so intensely she nearly collapsed. The tactical display showed the mercenary ships already moving into higher orbits, putting distance between themselves and the Academy. They'd actually backed down, choosing legal protection over completing their contract. Jessa whooped through the communicator. You did it. You actually bluffed them into surrendering. Wasn't a bluff. The law was on our side. Maya sank into the nearest chair, adrenaline draining away and leaving only exhaustion and pain. How long until coalition forces arrive? Still at least 90 minutes. But the mercenaries are actually broadcasting distress signals now, asking for medical assistance and legal representation. I think they're more scared of prosecution than they are of us. Professor Velkoth's voice joined the channel. All students are accounted for. Minor injuries, but nothing critical. Maya, the faculty council wants me to convey their profound gratitude. Your actions saved countless lives today. I killed people too, Maya said quietly. The reality was crashing over her now. The weight of what she'd done. Dral'vex and his soldiers. They're dead because of me. They're dead because they chose to attack a neutral station, the professor corrected gently. You responded to an act of war with appropriate defensive measures. There's a difference between murder and survival, child. Remember that. The next hour passed in a blur of medical scans, debriefings, and emotional reunions as students emerged from the shelters. Maya's ribs were cracked, not broken, and the medics patched her up with regenerative gel that would have them healed in 2 days. Jessa refused to leave her side, alternating between fierce hugs and excited recounting of the battle to anyone who'd listen. When coalition warships finally arrived, their commanders were shocked to find the crisis already resolved. They arrested the mercenary fleet without incident, collected evidence from the station's logs, and began coordinating with various governments about the diplomatic fallout. Because there would be fallout. Massive, galaxy-spanning consequences. The Carthian Mining Consortium tried to deny involvement, claiming Dral'vex had acted without family authorization, but the combat logs recovered from the mercenary ships proved otherwise. Financial transfers, communication records, strategic planning documents, all of it pointed to a coordinated attack authorized at the highest levels of Carthian leadership. Within 3 days, coalition authorities froze the consortium's assets across 40 systems. Criminal charges were filed against 17 executive board members. The family's mining contracts were revoked, their corporate licenses suspended pending investigation. A dynasty that had endured for generations crumbled in less than a week. All because they'd underestimated a Deathworld girl who embarrassed their heir. Maya watched the news coverage from her hospital room, still recovering but mobile. The story had gone viral across the galactic networks. Deathworlder student defeats private army. Human improvises victory against overwhelming odds. Why Earth-born humans are more dangerous than anyone realized. That last headline bothered her the most. She hadn't fought because she was dangerous. She'd fought because she had no choice. A knock interrupted her thoughts. Jessa poked her head through the door. "You're decent. You've got a visitor." Before Maya could ask who, an elderly human woman entered. She wore the formal uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps, her gray hair pulled back in a severe bun, her dark eyes sharp and assessing. "Specialist Torres. I'm Ambassador Chen. I represent Earth's interests in the coalition." She pulled up a chair without waiting for invitation. "You've caused quite a stir." "I didn't mean to cause anything. I was defending myself and my classmates." "I know. Which is why you're not in any trouble, despite what certain coalition members might prefer. But Maya, your actions have consequences beyond the immediate situation. You've reminded the galaxy that humans are formidable, even our civilians. Some species find that comforting. Others find it terrifying. I'm not formidable. I'm just a student who refused to die." Ambassador Chen smiled faintly. "That's what makes you formidable. Deathworld resilience combined with modern education and technology. It's a combination that makes many species nervous." She leaned forward. "I'm here to offer you a choice. You can return to Earth, complete your education in safety and comfort, or you can stay at Celestial Academy, knowing that your presence here will be scrutinized, debated, and possibly resented by those who preferred when humans knew their place." Mia thought about Dral'vex, about his arrogance and hatred. She thought about the other students, most of whom had treated her decently despite their cultural differences. She thought about Professor Velikoth, who'd recognized her abilities regardless of species. "I'm staying," she said. "Running away won't change anyone's mind about humans. But staying, succeeding, proving we belong here, that might." The ambassador's smile widened. "I was hoping you'd say that. The galaxy needs reminders that humans aren't victims or savages. We're survivors who adapted, learned, and thrived despite coming from one of the harshest worlds ever discovered. Your story proves that better than any diplomatic speech." She stood to leave, then paused. "One more thing. The coalition is establishing a new security protocol for all neutral institutions. It's being called the Torres Doctrine. Stations are now required to have defensive capabilities and trained personnel who can respond to attacks without relying on external help."
You've changed galactic policy, Maya.
"That's not something many people achieve in a lifetime," let alone at 17. After the ambassador left, Maya sat alone with her thoughts. Outside the hospital window, Kisara's twin suns painted the sky in shades of orange and gold. The academy floated in the distance, damaged but intact, a testament to human stubbornness and improvised warfare. Her communicator buzzed, a message from her parents back on Earth. Just seeing the news, they were terrified, relieved, proud, and angry all at once. She'd call them later, try to explain how she'd ended up in a war zone when she'd only meant to attend school. Another message, this one from Professor Velkoth. Her quantum physics exam was postponed due to recent events, but he wanted her to know she'd already earned top marks for the semester. Apparently solving equations under pressure counted for more than standard testing. A third message, from someone unexpected. Quix, the Shenur who'd witnessed her confrontation with Dral'vex. You were right about him. He was spoiled, arrogant, and dangerous. I'm sorry I didn't speak up when I should have. Maybe things would have turned out differently. Maya deleted that one. Guilt from bystanders didn't help anyone. Jessa burst through the door again, this time carrying a tablet. You need to see this. It's trending everywhere. The screen showed a compilation video, clips from the Academy's security cameras edited together with dramatic music. Maya solving equations in the lab. Maya running through smoke-filled corridors. Maya activating the mining lasers, her face determined and terrified at the same time. The video was titled Deathworld Defending Deathworlders, and it had been viewed 800 million times across Coalition space. I look exhausted, Maya said. You look like a hero. Jessica continue 1133. People are calling you the Deathworld Guardian. There's fan art, memes, even some species claiming they knew humans were formidable all along. 3 days ago, those same species were mocking us for being primitive. That's politics. But Maya, this is bigger than politics. You've proven that Earth-born humans can stand against anything the galaxy throws at us. You've given our species credibility we've been fighting for since first contact. Maya looked at her friend, at the excitement and pride in Jess's eyes. She wanted to feel the same, to embrace the hero narrative everyone was constructing around her. But all she felt was tired, hurt, and haunted by the people she'd killed. I just want to go back to studying quantum physics, she said quietly. Then do that. But understand that you've changed things. The galaxy sees us differently now. They see you differently. That carries responsibility whether you want it or not. Over the following weeks, the Academy repaired its damage and resumed classes. Students returned with a new wariness, recognition that even protected spaces weren't truly safe. Security measures increased. Faculty underwent combat training. The Celestial Academy that emerged from the attack was harder, more vigilant, forever changed. Maya returned to her studies, throwing herself into equations and theoretical frameworks with desperate intensity. Work was easier than processing trauma, and she had plenty of both. Nightmares plagued her sleep, visions of the docking bay explosion, of bodies floating in the void. The Academy's counselors told her it was normal, expected even. She'd experienced combat, and combat left scars, but gradually, life found a new rhythm. Professors challenged her with advanced material, recognizing that standard curriculum no longer engaged her. Other students sought her help with difficult concepts, and she discovered she enjoyed teaching. Jessa dragged her to social events, forcing her to interact with species she'd barely spoken to before. And slowly, painfully, Maya began to accept what had happened. She hadn't wanted to fight. She hadn't sought violence. But when survival demanded action, she'd adapted, improvised, and overcome. That was the Deathworld way, the Earth-born legacy. 6 months after the attack, Maya received a formal commendation from the Coalition Security Council. The ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy, a human teenager standing before representatives of 24 species, accepting recognition for heroism in defense of a neutral institution. In her acceptance speech, Maya spoke carefully, aware that her words would be analyzed and debated. I'm not a soldier. I'm not special operations. I'm just a student who refused to let bad people hurt my friends. Earth didn't make me dangerous. Fear made me creative, and desperation made me brave. Any species, from any world, would have done the same in my position. The only difference is that I grew up in heavy gravity with an evolutionary history of persistence, hunting, and problem-solving. Those advantages helped, but they weren't what saved everyone. She paused, meeting the cameras that broadcast her image across coalition space. What saved us was the choice to fight back, to adapt, to turn disadvantages into weapons and fear into fuel. That's not a death trait. That's a survival trait. Every species here has it, but sometimes we forget until crisis forces us to remember. I hope the galaxy learns something from what happened at Celestial Academy. Not that humans are dangerous, but that everyone is dangerous when survival is on the line. Respect that. Remember it. And maybe we'll avoid situations like this in the future. The speech was quoted for months afterward. Philosophers debated its implications. Military strategists studied her tactics. Anthropologists wrote papers about Deathworld psychology and adaptation. And in the Celestial Academy, in the rebuilt docking bay where a terrified student had once made a desperate gamble, a memorial plaque was installed. It listed the names of those who died in the attack, including Dral'vex and his mercenaries. No heroes and villains, just casualties of a conflict that never should have happened. Maya visited the memorial sometimes, when the nightmares were particularly bad. She'd read the names and remember that violence always had costs, even when necessary. The galaxy had learned her name. Yes. But she'd learned something too, that courage wasn't fearlessness. It was being terrified and acting anyway. That strength wasn't about muscle or weapons. It was about refusing to quit when everything told you to give up. And that being from a death world didn't make you special. It just made you someone who understood deep in their DNA that survival meant adapting or dying. Maya Torres chose adaptation. And the galaxy would never look at humans the same way again.